Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hey, I did bring. I actually remember what we were talking about last week, and I did bring a Shabbos book so we can review some of the laws of opening food packages that we talked about. Remember, we talked about it related to the parsha because last week we travels of the Jewish people through the desert, and about the fact that they traveled and they camped off Hashem, with Hashem's instructions. They left, and with Hashem's instructions, they stopped and camped. And the Gemara said that there's all construction, all demolition. Any of the 39 forbidden activities on Shabbos has to be constructed in some way, and disassembling something, like the Jews disassembled the Mishkan before they traveled, it's also constructive because they're disassembling it in order to reassemble it when they got to their destination. But the question is, does it matter where you reassemble? Does it have to be taking it down to rebuild it in the same spot? Or what if you take down a building and you want to build it down the block in some place? Is that called constructive demolition? So it's well, when you travel al Pi Hashem, you're always in the same spot. So you can't really take an indication from there because wherever they were in the same place. That was how we got into a whole discussion about constructive versus non-constructive activities. Like the 39 categories of what we call work, malacha, on Shabbos are all constructive activities in some way. They're all, work is not really the right word. Work would be avodah or something like that. Effort. So that's not really what work is. You aren't supposed to do physically strenuous things on Shabbos, but like a popular example, if you wanted to move the couch from the basement to the second floor, then you decided you're better off in the basement, and then you decided to put it in the backyard, or maybe you want to put it out for garbage disposal, and you spend the whole day. That's not really work, and from a Torah perspective, you haven't really done anything that's strictly forbidden on Shabbos, although it's certainly not appropriate or in the spirit of Shabbos. But if a person has a bowl of peanuts and raisins and they say, "Oh, I don't like peanuts," and they take out one peanut, that they've performed a cardinal form of work. So malacha is not really work. It means activity or a task, a job, something that you do and you make has a significant impact on the physical world. Like Hashem, who didn't work to create the world, but he did perform. Well, he generated a number of actions. He created a number of things over the course of 6 days, and the word Shabbat, on seventh day, he stopped creating. That's what Shabbat means. It doesn't mean rest. Menucha means rest. Right? If Shabbat Menucha means that Shabbat is a day of rest. But Shabbat doesn't mean rest. Shabbat means stopping, ceasing. You stop something, because when you are doing something and you stop, that's one of the reasons that the rabbis created muktzah. We think of the prohibition of muktzah. You don't pick up a pen, you don't pick up the scissors. Why is that? The obvious reason is that so that if you don't pick it up, then hopefully you'll remember not to use it. Which is one interpretation, but there's another interpretation that I think may come from Rambam. I forget who said it. Is that people who work on Shabbos, they don't work, but there are people who never work. And what do they do on Shabbos? How does Shabbos become a different day? So you can only stop something that you're doing, but you can't stop something that you're not doing. So they okay. So if you don't, everybody, even if they're not working, but at least they're picking up certain objects in the house and on Shabbos, you don't pick them up, so that you're stopping that. So there's something that distinguishes Shabbos. Anyways, so the most constructively, the most literally constructive act is construction. Construction is one of the 39 malachos, but it's actually two of the 39 malachos. There's something called boneh, which is building, and there's something called nakeb b'patish, hitting with a hammer, which is also construction. And these are different items on the list of malacha, but without getting into all the details, building is a constructive act So let's say if you have a wall and you put a brick on the wall, every time you put a brick, it's an act of construction. And if a person, if 10 people came, each one added a brick, each one has constructed. Makel Patish means completing something. And it can be something relatively minor. One of the examples he gives is you cut the threads of a new suit and the pocket comes sewn together and you just. So one of the points that he makes is that you can construct and you can deconstruct, like they did in the Mishkan. They assembled it and disassembled it, and each time there was construction and then deconstruction for the purpose of future construction, and that is kind of a pair of malachas that can constantly be done, redone, undone, redone. Like we also writing and erasing. There's a similar thing. You can write, and you scrape the parchment down, and then write again. So writing and erasing. There's a pair of constructive activities. Makel Patish you can only do once, and there is no unmakel Patish. So you complete something. That's what they say, for example, putting a shoelace into a shoe is you're completing the shoe. But if it came out of a hole and you want to just reinsert, that's fine. Blowing up a balloon is makel Patish, but if the balloon gets deflated, well, not punctured obviously, but if someone untied the balloon, you want to reinflate it, that's okay. So things like that, but tie it, no, you have a problem. You have to put one of those like clips on it or something. In concept. No, but it's more relevant not so much for a balloon, let's say an inflatable mattress. If you blew it up for the first time, let's say you had a hand pump, which it would be a malacha deraisa maybe. But once it was inflated the first time, it got deflated, you want to reinflate it, that's fine.
What about with a pump?
What was a hand pump? Not an electrical pump.
What about a solar panel?
I think it would be the same thing. I think so. Let's see.
My solar panels are in the type. The purpose of the solar right, but it's the hand all right.
Hold on, I'm just checking it out because I think he says that explicitly. Yeah. A ball, inflatable mattress, or toy may not be filled with air for the first time. Inflating a new bicycle tire with air is makel Patish for similar reasons. If the inflatable toy or mattress had already been filled with air, but had then become deflated, it may be refilled with air. However, this dispensation applies only if they could be sealed with a plug, do not require any tying. By contrast, a deflated bicycle tire may not be refilled because the bicycle as a whole is now considered broken. Inflating the tire is equivalent to repairing a broken item, i.e. the bicycle. This is where something we spoke about last week also. Inflating the tire is equivalent to repairing a broken item, i.e. the bicycle.
Right, so, but that doesn't answer solar necessarily.
I think it's with solar resistance in the bicycle.
It kind of depends. I mean,
You say if it's usable in some.
The child is not in the solar.
Maybe I guess I feel that might be a possibility. I think one of the things that just highlights what we mentioned last week is that part of the definition of work is, some of it is like sort of physical and technical, and some of it is kind of mental and conceptual. A bike is considered broken when the tire is deflated, and therefore that defines this as an act of repair. Whereas a mattress is not, because it isn't considered broken. So this has a human definition. Why isn't the mattress also considered broken? Yeah, so it is a mattress. Right. I think the reason is
let's say okay, so let's say, like in other words, if it's
okay.
not really creating the whole thing. Let's say it deflated totally, like you did it in the morning and then you go to sleep and you inflated the whole thing. By the time you went to sleep, it deflated totally.
So he said, I think the reason is, the difference is, second. Hold on, I don't want to get this wrong. Because
The bracing, the fixing it would have attached. Right.
why is reinflating a mattress not fixing, but reinflating a bike tire considered fixing? I think you're on the right track, but what's the reason? Oh, okay, a bike, let's say a kid's bike or something, which, well, why is reinflating a mattress not considered fixing, but reinflating a bike tire considered fixing? Think about it. A bike is not, well, a mattress is also not usable if it's deflated. Right. So, well, okay. Well, let's think about it for a second. If the bike tire was deflated, and you'd say, I need to fix my bike, it got deflated, right? When you're having guests and you blow up the mattress, you say, I need to fix the mattress? Why not?
You just need to repair it, make it better.
Why don't you say I need to fix it?
Because you don't consider it broken.
Why don't you consider it broken?
Because that's the nature of the matter.
Because that's the nature of the usage. So he says that the way you use a mattress is by inflating and deflating it. So you can't call it broken. It's just what you do with the mattress. Even so, filling it up for the first time is a problem. But with a bike, when the tire gets deflated, it is broken. That's not supposed to deflate. There was a problem.
But it is sometimes.
It is what?
Like a kid's bike, like I ride, whatever, and it's not broken, it just needs more air.
So it could be. I mean, that's what I think. With the stroller, it could be. He doesn't say this explicitly, so I'm not going to poskin it. But if it's half deflated, let's say it's riding, but it needs to be firmer, I imagine that wouldn't be a problem because you can't say that you're fixing it because it really isn't broken. It just can use a little more air. Right. So I would assume, based on the logic, I would like somebody to say that explicitly. Ask a shaila, but it would seem logical that this argument that he's making only applies if it got deflated to the point that it's really not usable.
But the same thing as the mattress can have.
The mattress is not usable when it's deflated, but it's also not considered broken. See, there's three things. Oh no, yeah, if it's a pinhole, it won't work. How are you going to inflate it?
Right, so you keep re-inflating it.
Okay, but it's still, when it's deflated, it's not broken because you intentionally deflate it each time you use it. Each time you finish using it, you intentionally deflate it to put it away. So being deflated, you can't call it broken. But it's broken because there's a pinhole, but you're not fixing that part anyway. Right. So then you're not doing anything about the pinhole. You're only doing something about the air that you usually put in and take out. So you're putting it in and taking it out, or you do every time. That's not considered an active repair. Okay, that's. Okay. Anyways, so that's as far as opening the containers. That's what we got into last time. So there's actually two different places where he discusses it. One is in connection with building and creating a new item. There's also a question of tearing, which is also a form of work, right? Tearing is also a constructive activity. I believe the twin of tearing is, sewing. Because tearing really meant tearing a fabric, right? You tear a fabric and then you sew a hem. So we'll see. But I don't know how that volume was, man. I had the one about buildings. Let's see what he says. So he says that. Okay. Okay. Well, let's start with one. I think she went to get what it needed. Because I think he needs to be processed. No, sorry, I'm not sure that I can continue well. Yeah, that was a halacha. I think we have a halacha problem. Oh yeah, okay, thank you. Right. Okay. Anyways, so okay, so the well-known controversy about opening food containers. So the issue, right, that many raise is that when you open a package, the package that you are opening now becomes a container. A sealed can is just a piece of metal. A can which is open is now a cup or a bottle. If not the container, well, let's say you take a plastic soda bottle, it's been a bottle the entire time, but when you open it, you break the ring around the cap, and now the cap becomes created. So anytime you open a package, you're obviously going to physically alter either the package or the lid of the package and make it in a new form, which is usable. Yeah.
The cap is even before it's on the bottle, it's the cup.
So
many attached by the ring, maybe for safety purposes.
So there's discussion about this. I don't know the details. They differentiate between plastic caps and metal caps. I think the metal caps are much more problematic because apparently, if I remember correctly, the process by which the metal caps are put onto the bottles is that the sheet of metal is somehow pressed on and molded onto the bottle, so it never exists as an entity. So when you break the ring, it's kind of those bugs that they grow inside a bean. They never. I just do this as well. In some cases you're allowed to eat them because they never came into the world. They go inside the bean. So this metal bottle cap, it never existed as an independent entity. So it's in the shape of a cap, but it's never been separated from it. It's like an apple never got picked off the tree. Only when you break the ring, as opposed to the plastic caps, which I think are somehow in the shape of a cap and then put onto the bottle, but they kind of exist. So many people are more lenient not opening the plastic caps, although some people are still strict about it. So he gives an example of, different kinds of packages: cans, bottles of soda, tuna fish, canned fruit, container of milk, carton of milk or juice, a box of matzah, a box of cookies, a bag of sugar. Now he says, according to Rambam, apparently, I don't know if Rambam had disposable food packaging in his day, but they must have had. So I guess they had sacks, flour sacks. I don't know what the Rambam spoke about. He doesn't consider this construction because you're not. Construction means you put things together and build. But in this case, you're not putting anything together. You're tearing something open. So he said a more correct analogy would be makom v'patish, with the other type of the completion of an item. Completing an item it's not the same as construction. It doesn't have. Construction is more of a kind of defined process. Construction means you put stuff together. Demolition means you take stuff apart. But makom v'patish, completion is its own thing. It's the finishing touch, whatever that might be. Literally, it means the final hammer blow when you give it one zest to straighten it out. It could be cutting the strings in your pocket. It could be anything which serves as an act of completion. I think they say some taking off certain kinds of lint. Everything. It's very abstract. So according to Rambam, opening a container would be more like makom v'patish. It's the completion of a finished item. Some people, practically speaking, are lenient about opening packaging because they're disposable and people don't keep them around, and therefore you don't view the finished product as an actual container of any significance. But many people take a stricter view. So, again, there's different. Not all packages are created equal, but it's good to be mindful and to try to do things in a halachically preferable way. So, as we said last week, when you are not left with a usable item, that's kind of the best case scenario. For example, that was what he has to say about in the chapter of Bona building. Then he continues the discussion in the later chapter of makom v'patish, the chapter on completion. And again, he says opening packages is a subject of serious halachic controversy. For example, a soda bottles with twist-off caps. Breaking the ring effectively transforms the cap into a functional instrument. Whereas previously the same cap could not be screwed on or off, breaking the seal now widens the opening of the cap. Others, again, we saw building, as we said before, because the package is built, created to be a container.
What you just read means you can't open it.
So this is a starting point that this is the reason that opening a package presents a halachic problem. Now, if one forgot to open all their containers, if you didn't, remember to open all 20 things that you needed before Shabbos, and now you're in a situation which basically happens to everyone every Shabbos, where you need to open something on Shabbos. Maybe open under certain conditions, only if the contents are important for their enjoyment of Shabbos, and that's kind of a given because you're opening a food package because you need it. But, so he says there's two categories. There's kind of reusable strong containers and like wrappers that you don't really keep around. So reusable containers are the more problematic ones: the cans, bottles, cartons, boxes of cereal, bags of sugar. Those are, a person has a bag of sugar, they can keep it in the cabinet for weeks as they go through it. A box of cereal, box of matzah can be there all year. Sometimes they are. That's why we have Pesach cleaning. You get rid of the old matzah to make room for the new matzah. So the way you do it is by, again, open it in a manner that you're not left with a reusable container. So, as he said, they have a helpful picture here in case you can't envision this, but you can open the bottom of the can. Right? Can openers work at either end. They work better on top than on bottom, but you can puncture the bottom, make an opening in the bottom, and then when you open the top, I think you're supposed to open the bottom first because the idea is if you open the top, you're creating a reusable container. But if you open the bottom, no one opens the bottom to use it that way. That's clearly a destructive act. And then once the bottom is open, you can then open what? Right. You don't have to fully open the bottom, but you can see the handy picture over here. Kind of open up both ends a little bit. Just in the can over here. The point is to make it not usable. I'll leave the rest up to you. It depends on the can. It's not as effective because the bottom of a can tends to be more rounded. Yeah. But the can opener will grip it and make a little puncture. You can make it that it's not really anything that will be used. Yeah, the same way you can use a can opener. You can use a can opener on Shabbos. Okay. Yeah. And also you have to be careful. This is a general issue.
An electric one, right?
Not an electric one. Well, you can take the electric can opener and do it like that. You can whack it with the electric can opener. You can whack it with the electric can opener. And
I'm
also
going to buy an awl.
An awl, yeah, right. An awl would be perfect, actually. That's the only thing.
You can't use a hammer, but you can stab.
You can use the hammer too.
Really?
You can use the hammer to crack a coconut. That's a classic example.
Okay.
Well, technically speaking, you're supposed to use the hammer only if you don't have a suitable, equally usable non-muktzah item.
That's what I thought.
Right. So I think I heard once that you have to go to the other room to get the other item. That's already enough of an inconvenience that you're justified. So I don't know. I heard that years ago. I don't want to quote me on that, but certainly, that's a classic. Basically, when we think of as muktzah, what comes to mind? If I said close your eyes and when you say the word muktzah, what do you picture? A pencil, right? So a pencil. So it's interesting when you read the Gemara Shabbos. It says yesh muktzah, ein muktzah, different major debates in the Mishnah. Much of which, again, it's in today's time, it's been already decided. And what we believe, what we follow our times is ein muktzah. There is no muktzah. Now we have lots of muktzah, right? So actually, there's different. Muktzah is really it's not one thing. It's a kind of a flow chart with different levels of things. And a pencil is actually the most benign form of muktzah. It's the least muktzah because you can use a pencil if you needed to puncture a pack. If you need to destroy a package and you needed a pencil, then you could do it. But if a pencil was strong enough, you could use it as an awl for your tuna fish can. But I wouldn't recommend it because you'll probably end up breaking the pencil. But real muktzah, you want to know what real muktzah is? A leaf or a pebble. Things with no use at all. The concept of muktzah really means things that are not designated for use on Shabbos. And the most muktzah is things that have no use at all. Things that you would never do anything. A rock, a stick. There's other categories of muktzah. Expensive things that you would be reluctant to handle for any purpose, like the electric can opener. You really wouldn't do that because it's more delicate. You only use it for its intended purpose. But painting, I think, is a discussion because it's not. It is delicate, but it doesn't. It's not a forbidden. The question is, does it have to be expensive and forbidden in use, or is it expensive just being expensive per se? I think there's some discussion about that. But neither is there use to the fancy china knickknack on your thing with that. I think there's a discussion about it. So there's a whole bunch of categories of muktzah, but the point, I'm not sure if the expensive item versus the pebble, which is worse, but the point is that regular items like scissors, pens, hammers, those things are less muktzah because, for this reason, they occasionally have other uses. What the correct way to classify them is that pebbles have no use at all on Shabbos, and scissors are mostly used, like mostly peaceful protest. Scissors are mostly used for things that are not Shabbos related. Hammers, but a hammer is not an expensive item, and you'll use a hammer to crack a coconut or something like that.
Do you want scissors to be in all?
Sure. Yeah, you can use a scissors.
How you could pick it up.
Yeah, absolutely. You can use a scissors on Shabbos to open a food
But
package.
what's the thing, I'm
But again, better if you have a knife handy, better to use a knife.
what's the thing that you have to designate something for Shabbos in order to
So there is no rule that you have to designate every item that you're going to use on Shabbos, but muktzah means that there are certain things that are inherently not designated for Shabbos use. Maybe, I guess the concept would be that everything has to be designated. So all items in the world are muktzah except for things that you use. So food is inherently usable. Food utensils are inherently usable. Other utensils are, again, if they're used, if their primary use is a forbidden activity, then it's muktzah, but it can be moved if it's needed for a permitted purpose. If it's only used for a forbidden activity because it's so expensive I would never use it for anything else, then I can't move it at all. I cannot pick up my laptop and use it to crack nuts with it because I would never do it. And if it's a rock, same thing. You can't.
You're allowed to use scissors to cut.
But what are you cutting? The only thing you can cut is if you have a food package. Is this example? What else are you going to cut on Shabbat?
Are you supposed to use the cut chicken?
Right. Chicken scissors. And if you don't have your chicken scissors, you might have to tevel it if you're going to use a regular scissors to cut your chicken. If you're allowed to cut open the package in the first, assuming that the bigger issue, again, the issue with opening packages, you have to ask yourself, again, can you open the package at all? Because am I creating a container? Am I creating a usable item? But if you've determined that, again, he said the best thing would be to open the package before Shabbos, you don't have this problem. You don't have to use the scissors or you don't have to use anything. But if you forgot to open it before Shabbos and now it is Shabbos, and you're relying on the sensation that I need this for Shabbos use, and I'm not creating a usable item, and the other condition is I'm not going to tear through any letters or pictures, not going to erase or destroy, then the allowance that I have to open this package on Shabbos, if I need a tool, I'll look around. If I have a knife, good. If I don't have a knife, I can use an awl or a scissors, the same way I can use a hammer to crack a coconut. Or
could you use a nail with a hammer then?
Yeah, if that's what you need to do.
Crack open a coconut?
No, or whatever.
A can, put a hole in a can.
You can.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the mother package?
And the can opener too, I'm like, by the can opener.
So I think.
Because once you leave, there is cut.
Okay, so let's continue. I think we'll get to some more about that as we go. Let's
You're rocking our world, Rabbi.
Yeah.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
Okay, some people say that cans of soda can be opened in a normal way. Okay, that's he doesn't elaborate on that, but I do know that's a debate. And the twist off caps, you can open it if you throw the cap away. That's what he says. I didn't know that. He says if you can open the plastic twist off caps are, according to some people, permitted because the cap is completely unfunctional even before it has been sealed onto the bottle. That's what I was saying before. It's designed with a small rim, so it fits onto the bottle and gets sealed, but it was really complete before it was put on the bottle. You're not really making a new thing. All you're doing is breaking the ring. Okay, one who abides by the ruling.
The
Metal ones are worse. That's what he doesn't. He says plastic. He doesn't elaborate.
The metal ones they make on the bottle.
Right, that's the issue. That's what I remember here. Is the metal ones are. I think we were talking about that when you were.
The metal ones so much.
They're not as common, but that's I've heard that they're much more of a serious problem. He doesn't even mention it. Well, that uses pop off. That's not a problem. Right? But the twist ones, there are metal soda bottles where you twist the cap and it breaks through, just like the plastic ones, but the process they use to make them is different and it's more problematic. There's one who follows the ruling that you're not allowed to open cans and bottles. You can benefit if somebody else does open it. If someone else follows a more lenient view, you're allowed to benefit. They didn't make the food; they just opened the container. And the truth is that there's a permissible way to do it, right? You could just tear it open. So if you open bottles, I don't open bottles, so I open bottles, you don't open bottles, whoever opens the bottle, everyone else can partake. You're not supposed to ask somebody to do it because if I don't open it, then I shouldn't ask you to do it. But if you did it, you might go to someplace, visit somebody who follows a more, not everybody is as strict as they are in these North Florida. We have a very strict religion in this town. Anyways. Okay. Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to do that. I've heard you're not supposed to do it. He says the same thing. Because if you're following, if it's like, say, Chalav Yisrael, right? Everyone agrees that there's legitimate basis in halacha you don't have to have Chalav Yisrael, but it's an enhancement. If you don't drink Chalav Yisrael, if I get something that is not Chalav Yisrael, I don't want to use it, I can give it to you. You use it. There's nothing wrong with that. But with the bottles, it's a debate in halachic authority. Is it right or is it wrong? Now, some people say it's right. Some people say it's wrong. It's okay to follow whoever you follow, but if you're following someone who says it's wrong, then why are you asking somebody else to do it?
If they're doing it,
if they're doing it for themselves, if they say, please pass me the bottle, I'd like a drink. What?
kind of there, right?
So actually, if you want to get technical, so I actually heard from Rabbi Belsky himself when I was in camp, and he said there's two reasons that it's problematic. One is that the same halach, if you're following a halachic position that says you can't do this, if you give it to somebody else, you're violating the prohibition of listening to Yiver. Don't put a stumbling block in front of them. You're causing somebody, just open it yourself then. Like if you're okay in letting somebody else do it, then what's the difference? It means you're not following the opinion. That you say, I'm giving it to them because somebody says it's permitted. Then you do it. You're not allowed to get somebody else to do something that you feel is wrong. So it's just not consistent. Also, there's a concept of Shelach. Right, you can have somebody do something for you. You can have somebody search for chametz in your house. You can have somebody sell your chametz. You can have somebody buy whatever it is. So there's a whole discussion in the Gemara about it. Can you have somebody do a wrong thing on your behalf? But possibly yes. So even if that person follows a permitting opinion and that's okay, I follow the one that says it's forbidden. But if I'm going to ask them to do it, so I might be considered the one who's legally doing it. The same way as if anything else that I send somebody else. If I send somebody to check my house for chametz, I get the mitzvah. If I send somebody to open a bottle, so then I'm getting the credit or the blame for it. So that's why you shouldn't ask somebody else to do it. But if they do it, you can use it.
It's a little off topic, maybe like on Yom Tov then. Let's say when you open the tuna can, you still have to do the bottom so you're not making.
There's no difference between Shabbat and Yom Tov in this regard, because construction is not one of the types of work that's permitted on Yom Tov, even when you